I am very fortunate to be here in Shelly Sedory's beautiful kitchen. Many of you know Shelly because she's an RN at Memory and Movement. She also has a master's in health education and has taught nutrition and wellness courses. Shelly is going to tell us a little bit more about herself and about what we're making tonight.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you.
So, hey everyone, thanks for tuning in today. I've been so excited to do this program with all of you. As Melanie said, my previous life before Memory and Movement, I worked in the field of health education and taught nutrition and wellness classes at colleges in Pittsburgh and down here in Charlotte. So it's just a passion that I have. I love it. And I've had the great fortune of meeting Savon Drost. Come on over, Savon. Savon is a native Israeli who moved to the United States. And as part of her journey, she started a food business here in Charlotte. She grew up eating like the Mediterranean diet. So she's very familiar with all of the components and is going to share with us how she sources those things and how we cook those things. And while she does that, I'm going to talk about the science of food. So why do we make the choices that we do? Why are they healthy? That kind of thing. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. So the Mediterranean diet, I really hate calling it a diet because in all honesty, it's a lifestyle. And this is something Savon and I talked about quite a bit when we were meeting, that, you know, it's not just something that you go on and off of. It's not something where I'm going to try to lose weight and I go on a diet. This is really a lifestyle choice to eat in a different way to provide a better platform for good health in the long run. So a lot of studies have been done on, you know, what diet is best for maintaining our health over time. And the Mediterranean diet is the clear runner for that. We know that it helps to prevent diabetes. We know that it prevents high blood pressure and heart disease. It helps to prevent strokes. And for us, it helps to prevent Alzheimer's and related dementias. And it also has improved, helps to prevent Parkinson's disease. So it really cuts across the spectrum of many things because a lot of those diseases have at their core inflammation as part of the core of why they happen. So the Mediterranean lifestyle, again, is very good for all of those things. And interestingly enough, we did learn that the Mediterranean diet and not having obesity as one of our risk factors is important in COVID. So 45% of Americans are overweight, obese, or morbidly obese. So it is a very prevalent thing. Of course, 65% of people hospitalized with COVID were obese, and 75% of people who died with COVID were obese. So that tissue that collects in the abdominal area is inflammatory. And that inflammation is, you know, part of why people didn't do well with COVID. So there's a lot of motivation for us to adopt a Mediterranean lifestyle. Savon, could you tell us a little bit about what is included on the Mediterranean diet so we know what kind of things we're looking at eating?
Yes, so a lot of lean protein. Fish is very important for sure. A lot of vegetables, a variety of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and legumes. Very little sugar if we get it from fresh fruits. Definitely nuts and seeds are very important, healthy fat, a lot of greens. Yeah, and we're lucky enough to have resources today to get all these ingredients in any supermarket that is available near you.
Good, good. Sivan and I were talking about health in Israel. And when she grew up eating purely a Mediterranean diet. You said your grandparents and parents were both very good cooks, right?
Yeah, my grandmother cooked every day from scratch with vegetables from her garden. She grew everything. And she cooked for the whole family every single day. So I was lucky enough to grow up with really amazing food. And that's where I became passionate about it.
And what changes have you seen in Israel based on the change in diet?
So growing up, we did not have fast food chains. We did not have frozen meals in the freezer aisle. And now that we go back to visit, and there are a lot of food, fast food restaurants that are available, you definitely see the change in obesity, which we didn't used to have. So that's definitely a big difference.
And you said you see more Alzheimer's now in
Definitely,
Israel than
yeah.
you did before.
Yeah.
So again, we have definitely like research science based, but we also have, you know, life experience that's telling us those cultures where the Mediterranean diet was followed, certainly the diseases that we're seeing were much less. So there's a lot of good reason for us to adopt this lifestyle.
Yes.
So we're going to start with Savon teaching us how to make a good salad that includes ingredients that would be found in the Mediterranean diet.
Yeah.
So go ahead and show us what you're going to be doing.
Okay, so to start with the salad, we're going to have some organic leafy greens and sweet potato that we're going to roast in the oven, and that's what I would start with. So I would take a sweet potato and peel it, and then we're going to cut it into cubes. Now, the reason I'm starting with a potato, because after you bake it, you have to let it cool off before you put it into the salad because of the greens. And all the other ingredients are going to be cold. So I'm just going to cube that real quick.
Perfect. So one of the things that happens, and the reason we start with salad, obviously, is, you know, most of us start with a salad, but we wanted to talk about carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are an interesting thing because in our current publicity, carbohydrates get a lot of bad rap. You know, low carb diet, don't eat carbohydrates. And that's really a fallacy because everything that Savon is using right now is a carbohydrates. So we have the sweet potatoes, we have the greens, we have, what else are you putting on here? We can put any kind of vegetables on there. So vegetables and fruits are carbohydrates. And so to say that you don't want to eat carbohydrates is really a fallacy. We need carbohydrates. It's just we need the right ones. So the good carbohydrates are the fruits, the vegetables, wheat, whole wheat, brown rice. Those kinds of things are healthy carbohydrates. The unhealthy carbohydrates are things that are made out of processed white flour. So we want to avoid those because, again, that's just really just losing a lot of the nutrients from it. But also, when we have like a grain of wheat, the fiber helps to hold the sugar, which is carbohydrate, within the structure of the plant as we're digesting it. So the sugar in that fiber, carbohydrate, is released very slowly into the bloodstream, which causes a slow rise in our blood insulin levels and our blood glucose levels. So it's a very gentle kind of way for us to get glucose in our diet. If we eat things like pure sugar and processed flours, what happens is our blood glucose level shoots up very quickly, very high, as does our insulin level. We shove that glucose into fat cells, and then that insulin level falls, and then we're hungry again. And so we repeat the pattern of eating more of those bad carbohydrates. And the other part with that, cycle is it causes inflammation in the body. And so when we have our carbohydrates, what we're looking to do is have carbohydrates that are going to release that glucose slowly. Whole grains, fruits, and vegetables. White flour does not do that. Sugar does not do that. So I want you to just kind of keep in mind, carbohydrates are a good thing for us, but it has to be the right kind of carbohydrates, right?
Yes.
So one of the things that Savon and I talked about was, where do we get our ingredients? Where is the best place for us to find these healthy carbohydrates? Because I know sometimes I go to one of the grocery stores and I pick up the kale and it's like flimsy. And by looking at it that it's not going to have the nutrients that we need. So Savon, what do you suggest as far as choosing the types of carbohydrates, and then where can we source those the best way?
Okay, so if there is a Trader Joe's near you, this would be your best option for greens and then they come in bags already washed and chopped, ready to go, and they're very fresh, and it's a great value, to be honest. Their prices are very reasonable. I personally love to shop there. If you don't have a Trader Joe's near you, try Whole Foods. They're very good at replacing their produce every single day, and they're the freshest I've found. And then if you go to Harry Cedar or Food Line or whatever is available for you, just make sure that the greens are firm. Like when you pick up a kale or a head of lettuce, it shouldn't, it looks wilted when it kind of, it shouldn't be firm when you hold it. And if it's not, just don't get it. Get a different alternative, different greens, So yeah, that's what I would do.
Perfect. Could you show us how we're going to put the salad together?
Yes, so first of all, I prepare the sweet potatoes in a bowl with olive oil, salt, pepper, and a little bit of cinnamon. And then I'm going to put it in a sheet pan and roast it. So I'm going to put this in the oven real quick.
So Savon just has a cooking sheet with a piece of parchment paper on it that she put the potatoes on, and now she's placed them in the oven at 375 degrees. And again, the recipes are available to you, so don't feel like you have to take a whole lot of notes on what she's preparing. We just really wanted to show you the techniques that she's using.
Yeah. So now we got nice spring mix greens in the salad bowl, and we're going to add the roasted sweet potatoes that I let cool off before I put them in. And I kind of sprinkle them on top, just like that. And then we're going to use an avocado. So we're going to cut it in half first. Thanks.
We have a question in the chat.
Yeah.
Regarding whether this diet, the Mediterranean diet, is good for someone who suffers from chronic IBS.
Yes, in fact, it is. The thing with IBS is that people with IBS have different triggers. And so you have to really slowly add foods that you're not typically eating into the diet and see how you do with it. People with IBS tend to do better when there is a little bit more fiber because there's something for the intestine to contract upon. It's actually the nerve input to the intestine that's problematic for a person with IBS, not something structurally inside the colon itself. So it really is, some people are very sensitive to a certain amount of fiber. And so again, I would just slowly add a new food and make sure that you tolerate it with your IBS and then move from there. But yes, in fact, a Mediterranean diet is very good for it because again, we're not putting in, the foods that are quickly going through the digestive tract, which is one of the problems with IBS. So it's a slower transit through the colon, which is what you'll get with the fibrous foods from the Mediterranean diet.
So we're going to add some healthy fat into the salad. So I sliced the avocado in half. I took the pit with a spoon, which is the safest way to do it.
Okay, so I'll tell you how I do it. Okay. So if there's a nut here in this avocado, I go like this. And I hit the nut and it sticks on my knife and I wiggle it out. So you're saying I shouldn't do that.
You should do the spoon.
Okay. I may cut off my hand one of these days.
Yep. So we're going to add the avocado. We're going to layer all the ingredients on top of the greens first. Just like that.
I think an interesting thing about doing the salad is that you can interchange ingredients when you're doing the salad. So could you tell us what we could substitute, for example, for the sweet potatoes, and then what we could substitute for avocado if in fact we wanted to do something a little different?
Any vegetable you like. So you can do butternut squash in season, the same sweetness, same carb. You can do roasted cauliflower if you like. Carrots are very good. You can always find a different vegetable to substitute just that you like better.
Yeah. And the same would go for the greens, correct?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Any greens you like: arugula, romaine lettuce, kale, spring mix. Not iceberg.
No, not iceberg.
It doesn't have a lot of nutritional value in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's a good point.
If you like cheese, you can use goat cheese or feta cheese. We have feta cheese today that I like to get at Trader Joe's because they have the Israeli feta. So it's really good. It's got nice saltiness to it. So you can add as much as you like or as little as you like. Just sprinkle it.
And goat cheese and feta cheese are the two primary cheeses on the Mediterranean diet. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
Do you know why that is? Is it because of the fat level in those cheeses?
I think it's because what's available there.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a method that they use. So it's
They are lower in saturated fats, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, but goat cheese and feta cheese are really the two best cheeses to have as part of our Mediterranean diet.
And I think they're easier on digestion too.
Yes, I know you're right about that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And for nuts and seeds, again, another healthy fat option. I have sunflower seeds. You can use walnuts, you can use almonds, pistachios, whatever nut or seed you like, just sprinkle it right on top. It's pretty, isn't it?
I think the one thing that you have to get them comfortable with is being creative. So it's okay to try a few things and just match them up and see how they work. Generally speaking, you, like Savon was saying, you can interchange root vegetable with root vegetable, and you can interchange, you know, the seeds with nuts. So you can really kind of tailor it to what your things are that you like, and also occasionally throw something in that maybe is new and different and see if you like that as an added ingredient.
For sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, just have fun with it and have what you like. You don't have to go through the recipe. Try different ingredients. Now we're making the dressing. So we got good quality olive oil. We have balsamic vinegar. And you all have all the exact quantities on the website.
Well, if you can see her making that salad dressing, I'll move this bowl.
I'm gonna mix it all up. And we're gonna add some salt and pepper. Add some Himalayan salt in here, which I like.
Yeah, salt's always is a question people have in regards to health. Can you eat salt? There's really a lot of the research on the sodium actually show that there's certain cultures, African American, Black people are much more sodium sensitive than those who are not. And so if you're African American and you're having any kind of heart problems, high blood pressure, then definitely, you know, keep salt very low in your diet. Otherwise, you know, a little bit of salt in the diet really isn't going to harm your blood pressure or your heart health. Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna mix it all up in a bowl and drizzle it on top of the salad.
Perfect.
Very simple, right?
Very simple. And it's beautiful. Perfect. Thank you, Sivan.
Thank you.
So there you go. There's an easy way to get carbohydrates into your diet without using bad carbohydrates. It's all good carbohydrates, and it's, you know, heart healthy and brain healthy and great for weight control. All of those things we've talked about as the positives of the Mediterranean lifestyle. You know, every structure in the human body is made out of protein. So all of our blood cells, all the cells of my body, my liver, my kidneys, my lungs, my heart, my brain, my hair, everything is made out of protein. There's actually over 50,000 types of protein in the human body. So we do need protein, obviously, because we're made out of protein. So it's important that we get healthy protein in our diet. So Savon, could you tell us the proteins? Let me change our camera here for a second.
Yes.
Could you tell us the types of proteins that are available to us on the Mediterranean diet?
Yes. So I start with fish because it's my favorite and it's the healthiest. So if you like fish, that's your best option. And I would say any type of fish. Salmon is good because of the fatty omegas there. It's
Omega-3s. Mm-hmm.
And but if you like cod, you can do that. If you like snapper, is wonderful. It's really good. But any fish you like, you cannot go wrong. Like, it's definitely healthy.
Yeah. I didn't grow up with the Mediterranean diet. I grew up with bologna on white bread with tomato ketchup for lunch, and for dinner I'm German, and we had fatty meat and potatoes. And I can remember my mom making a pork roast, and there was a layer of fat, and she put salt and pepper and throw it in the oven, and we would peel it off and eat it like it was candy. So I did not grow up having a Mediterranean diet whatsoever. And the only time we ate fish was on Fridays and Lent. So I did not grow up as a fish eater. And so I have gotten better over time, learning to enjoy a piece of fish. But I honestly struggle with how to buy the fish. You know, what am I looking for? How do I know if it's a good piece of fish? I can't deal with a fishy piece of fish. And so I always hesitate because I don't want to have that as my experience when I'm trying to eat fish. Can you teach us a little bit about how to choose the fish, where we should look for it? How do we know if it's a good piece of fish or if it's not?
Well, so a lot of times I actually ask to smell the fish, and don't be shy about it. And the butchers are really sweet. They really understand, and they will definitely let you do it. And if you ask them to clean the bones, if it's a bony fish, they will do it for you. Again, I love to buy my fish at Whole Foods. Fresh market is a great option. If there's one near you, it's really, really great source. And we have wonderful fish markets today all around town.
Yeah, sure.
And we can give you the names if you would like to. And you can't go wrong with the markets because they're getting them normally the same day. So you know you're getting a really fresh fish.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So Savon's going to start showing us how to make salmon.
Yes. But before that, we're going to make the wild rice.
Oh, you did the rest of
To go with that.
Okay, perfect.
Just because it takes longer to
Okay.
cook. So we're going to
You can
start.
tell I'm not the chef. I'd be doing my salmon, and then my salmon would be getting cold when I'm making my rice. So this is why we have Savon here doing the cooking part. Fine.
Okay, so we're going to boil the water. So 2 cups of water to 1 cup of wild rice. So we have this wild rice blend
Here's
here.
that camera there.
Right here. It's beautiful. It's very fragrant. It's gluten-free. I love this. This is great. And if you want to try different rices, you can go to Earth Fare, Fresh Market, and Whole Foods. They have all the rices in bulk. So you can try just a little bit instead of buying the whole bag. In case you know you wouldn't like it, just try a little bit, cook it at home, and see how you feel. And then, so I would definitely recommend that.
And the white rice that maybe I grew up on, not such a good choice because, again, they've stripped away a lot of the nutrients and the coatings of the rice itself. And so, bang for buck, we're not getting as much nutrition. But also, as we talked about, it affects how quickly it's absorbed by the body, the carbohydrate in it. So we do like things like brown rice, wild rice, those kinds of things on the Mediterranean diet. Yes, for sure.
And there are a lot of grains that are also available today. If you like quinoa, buckwheat, a lot of, they're gluten free as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So,
So we're
you want to show us how to do that?
Yep. So I'm going to add a little bit of salt, just to salt the water, just a little bit. And
See, what I've noticed when I eat out, that the food seems to be saltier and that they use a lot of butter. Do you find that when you're eating out at restaurants?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they sneak in sugar too.
Yeah, they do sneak in sugar too.
Salad dressing normally will have some sugar. If you like barbecue, the barbecue seems to have sugar. A lot of sneaky, So when you cook at home, you can definitely control all these elements and make it healthier.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So we're using olive oil only, no butter today.
No butter.
Yeah. So while this is boiling, we're going to start on the salmon.
Okay.
So we have a question in the chat from a few people regarding where you source your fish, and if you found a good source for frozen fish, that is good.
Whole Foods. And definitely frozen fish is as good as fresh because even when it gets to the market, it was previously frozen. And a lot of people don't know that.
Oh, okay.
Because it has to travel. So
right.
So they freeze it anyway. So don't be afraid of frozen fish. Make sure that it's wild. Don't get farm raised. Make sure that it's wild.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. More nutrients?
Definitely.
Okay.
For sure.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Good. Thank you for that advice.
And it tastes better.
Okay.
It tastes way better.
What about, there's another question regarding the sort of quick to prepare, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, quinoa, those little 90-second packets. What do you think of that?
Buy prepackaged, it might have ingredients that you don't want to put in your diet. Sodium is definitely, it's higher in sodium and some preservatives. So if you buy quinoa as a whole, just blend with nothing in it, you can add your seasonings that are way healthier than a packaged prepared.
You know what you're putting in it.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And that brings up a good point. Learning to read labels
Yeah.
on the foods that you purchase.
Yeah.
And so I just got out a bag of rice that I have because I like cheater ones. It saves me a lot of time when I'm, trying to come home from work and fix the dinner. So I'm not adverse to using shortcuts, but I always read labels. And so I looked at my label on the in rice that I have, and there's no sodium in it. It's the rice and it's some canola oil. And so it's a fine alternative to use as a quick product. So what I would encourage always is to read the food labels. The other strategy for healthy grocery shopping is to spend most of your time on the outside edges of the grocery store. So if you think about how a grocery store is set up, you usually walk in, there's the produce section, and then you'll have your meat section, and then you have the dairy section, and then you have like the cheeses on the outside. Those are all the refrigerated areas are. And that is where we find the ingredients that are closer from coming from the ground or the actual animal source than the things that are in the interior of the grocery store, which is where all of our processed foods are. So the processed foods are going to have more chemicals, they have more additives, they have more salt, they have more sugar. So the more time we can spend on the outside edges of the grocery store, the healthier our diet will be just by virtue of what we're purchasing. If you dive into the middle of the store, that's where you're going to add all those things that are not as healthy for you.
A few more questions coming in around rice, around different types of rice, specifically basmati rice. Was there a mention of that?
Oh, yeah.
And somebody's asked whether you can make rice ahead, like for example, during the weekend and eat it during the week.
Absolutely. It keeps really long, and you can just heat it up either in the microwave or on stove top, or stick it in the oven to get it crispy a little bit, to get some texture if you like. You can definitely cook rice ahead of time.
And what about the basmati? Do you use basmati rice in the Mediterranean diet, Simone?
Yes. Yep, absolutely. Yeah. It's beautiful. I mean, it's jasmine, basmati.
Yeah, it's really the white, the old-fashioned white rice is probably the worst for us. So staying away from that is the best strategy for using that. And as Savon said as well, we talked a little bit about quinoa.
Yeah.
The quinoa is one of the 3 proteins that comes from a plant that has all of the building blocks of a protein within it.
Yes.
So if you're eating meat or fish, by virtue of those ingredients, they have all of the what's called amino acids or building blocks for proteins. For those 50,000 proteins my body's made out of, if I eat total protein, which is, the meat and fish department, I'm going to get all those building blocks. But what happens if you're like a vegetarian, or you just don't like a lot of the meats, or you're trying to not have a lot of meat in your diet, which, red meat, we try to do not more than twice a week. Well, we can use plant sources to help us with our amino acids. Many of our plant sources have some amino acids, but not all of them. There are 3 plant sources that have all of the building blocks, and those 3 sources are quinoa, soy, and buckwheat. So if you have those 3 proteins as part of your diet, you really wouldn't even have to eat meat. The caveat for that is, particularly if you're a younger woman, you have to make sure you have iron supplementation, because we get our iron supply from meat is better than our iron supply from plants. But that being said, again, all the building blocks as far as proteins come from quinoa, buckwheat, and soy. And so we like quinoa as a good alternative for protein.
Definitely.
So what are you going to do with the salmon?
Okay, so we got a beautiful fillet of salmon here. And I mixed in a little bowl salt, pepper, a little bit of paprika for beautiful color and taste, and lemon juice. Lemon goes wonderful on fish. Oh, and garlic, minced garlic. So you can do fresh garlic if you like, just mince it real small. You can do jar garlic, there's nothing wrong with that. Save you some steps. And just we're going to sprinkle it on top of the salmon. And you can use a brush or your hand to just spread it evenly.
Just as an aside, I wish Zoom had some kind of smell-o-vision, because it smells amazing in this kitchen. The sweet potatoes are roasting.
It's the cinnamon.
Oh my God.
That's the best part. I know. Okay.
Maybe someday we could do a live cooking class instead of over Zoom. And we'll eat the fruits of Savon's labor.
There are a few new questions in the chat. Do we need to be concerned about portion control? Somebody asked.
Yes.
Yes, always. And somebody mentioned that you have now inspired her husband to try quinoa again. And someone else toured a salmon farm in Norway several years ago, and she believes that it is highly recommended, and that the farming method is very controlled and can be found in Needle and Aldi locally.
Perfect.
Oh, good to know.
Thank you. Thanks for that input. So we talked about the quinoa. What was the first one you mentioned, the first chat? I don't want to.
No, you got it.
Okay.
Portion control.
Portion control. Oh, yeah. So the general rule of thumb is that half to 2/3 of your plate should be filled with the healthy carbohydrates. The protein source is generally 3 ounces, which is the size of a deck of cards. And then the fat is the added fat that we use is fine. Fat can be up to 30% of your total intake. Fat is really important as part of our overall nutrition. We need it in our body for several reasons. One being to absorb vitamins that are found in fat. So it is important. So roughly 30% of your diet maximum for fat. 50 to 65% should be carbohydrates, and then a smaller portion of protein. What we find historically with Americans is our protein intake is high. There are very few Americans that don't get enough protein. That is not usually our struggle. Our struggle is usually the carbohydrates. So if you look at your plate, you'll have this big hunk of steak, and then you have 5 green beans. That's kind of an out of balance diet. So we want to do the opposite and have a small piece of steak and a large amount of carbohydrates, good carbohydrates.
We have a follow-up question about quinoa. Ruth would like to know which is best, white, red, or black? And a related question, well, not really related. Let's do quinoa first.
I love them all, and there's really no difference nutritionally. So you can use any of the 3 or all of the 3.
And when you're thinking about that 30% portion control and plate distribution, is an avocado a fat or a fruit?
It is a monounsaturated fat is the kind of fat it is, and so we do classify it as a fat source in our diets. That's a good question. That's a great question. Yeah. I feel like I'm back in nutrition class. I love it. This is awesome. Good. So Savon's going to put our salmon in the oven.
Yep, just to top it off with more lemon because it's really good when it comes out of the roasted lemon. So just slice some lemon and put it on top, and we're going to put it in 275-degree oven for about 15 minutes.
Perfect. We did touch a little bit on fats. Like Savon said, the primary oil used in cooking in the Mediterranean diet is olive oil. And it's because of the type of fats that is in the oil itself that make it so healthy. A general rule of thumb is that any fat that is solid at room temperature has more saturated fats, which are the ones that we find unhealthy for the heart and the brain and the blood vessels. So a fat that is solid at room temperature, butter, margarine, lard, those are less healthy than the liquid oils that tend to have less of the saturated fat. There are a couple oils that, kind of break that rule, but most people don't use them. So like I said, that's just a really good general rule of thumb to use when choosing the oils that you're going to cook with. Canola, safflower oil, those are good oils as well. But again, Mediterranean, because of the extra nutrients that come with it, extra virgin olive oil is the preferred one to use for cooking. The other thing that is important with fats is when we eat processed foods, oftentimes manufacturers do what's called hydrogenation to the oil or the fat. And what happens when we hydrogenate an oil is we are actually changing the position of some of the structure of the fat. When we do that and ingest it, it is a terrible fat to have in our body. It's called a trans fat. It's like a piece of glass circulating in your body, and it takes a long time for our bodies to rid them. And so when you are looking at those food labels, you should be very cautious about eating anything that has partially hydrogenated or hydrogenated fats in it. So that's one thing you do want to avoid when we're talking about the fat sources.
We have another question. I think we're probably all guilty of breaking whatever you say is the rule here. How long is it okay to keep dried spices in your cabinet?
Oh, great question. It is a great question. So I buy mine in bulk because I cook a lot, so I want a lot of spices. So I put a little bit in little containers that I use daily. And then the rest I put in Ziploc bags and I put them in the freezer. Oh, good idea. So they last longer. So you can portion it, it will go a long ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sivan, you were telling me that there's just such a variety of spices in the Mediterranean diet. Is that right?
Definitely. And you want to remember to use a variety of spices into your cooking. Cumin is wonderful, which we're going to put in our roasted carrots. I use a lot of cumin because I love it and it's healthy for you. Turmeric It's good in prevention of Alzheimer, actually.
Anti-inflammatory.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Cinnamon is a wonderful source as well. But just trying to add some different spices to your vegetables, your proteins, even in the grain. You know, you can put cinnamon and quinoa. Beautiful.
So if you're a rule follower and it's hard for you to imagine changing a spice just to see what happens, then, Google is a great source where you can Google it and say, what can I substitute for cumin? What can I substitute for thyme? And you can interchange some of your spices to get some different flavors in your diet. And again, avoiding the salt and butter as the flavoring source, which we're trying to, eliminate or at least reduce when we're doing like Mediterranean diet. Savon's going to now come to the other side of me, and she's going to show us how she's going to prepare some carrots and some broccoli.
So let's start with the broccoli. And again, you can try any other vegetable. You can do cauliflower, you can do squashes. Any hard vegetable will go well with all the seasonings and the roasting methods we're going to try today. So I have a big broccoli head here. And okay, that's good. We're just going to cut the florets as close as possible to the head of the broccoli. Just like that.
So you're not supposed to use that stemmy part. Is that right?
I put them in my veggie burgers. I don't waste a lot. There are ways to put them into something. But for today, we're just going to use the florets. And these are very big, so you can just cut them.
So you don't recommend my avocado seed method on broccoli either?
Definitely not.
Just checking. You can have your fingers.
Be safe.
Those that can't do teach. Have you all heard that before? So one of the things that we were wanting to cover when we're talking about doing the broccoli and the carrots is two of the main concepts of having a healthy diet. And those two things, we'll talk three of them actually, but two of them are balance and variety. So balance is choosing foods from different food groups. So we're going to have our vegetable carbohydrates. We have our carbohydrate rice. We have our protein salmon. We have our olive oil fat. So we're having balance with our diet. So we don't want to have too much of any one thing. Again, the proportions that we talked about, that's balance. Variety is having different foods from within the same food group. So variety here for us would be, broccoli and carrot. And so as we're trying to build a healthy lifestyle, one of the things we do want to do is focus on the fact that we need variety. A lot of us have favorite foods and we kind of get in our patterns and, we always have this with that and we always have this on Tuesday night. And, we get into those rituals and patterns and there's some good about that in the sense that we can sort of control a lot of variables. But when that happens, we're losing a lot of micronutrients. Those are vitamins, minerals, and what's called phytochemicals, which are very small kind of chemicals in our food that are different in different food sources. So it's really important as we're looking at the Mediterranean lifestyle to include balance, meaning all the different food groups, and then variety, which is different foods within the same food group.
Yeah.
So what are you doing with our broccoli and carrots?
Okay, so we have salt, pepper, paprika, lots of garlic. Garlic is so healthy for you. You need to eat garlic. And a little bit of olive oil. And I'm just going to put it on top of the broccoli. Just like that. Got a beautiful color. And we're going to make sure it's all coated and mixed. And if you like lemon, you can add lemon. Why not? If you like balsamic, add balsamic. Just put whatever you like in there that's going to make it more flavorful for you.
Savon, where do you buy your olive oil? And what do you look for when you buy it?
Okay, so we buy ours at Trader Joe's, but Harry Cedar has good brands. I really think, again, we're so lucky to have a lot of variety today in every supermarket. But just look for extra virgin olive oil and the press too. So it will tell you on the label I need my sunglasses. It will be cold or cold or hot press. And any oil from California. So now we have California, we have Greece, we have Italy. They're all good.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
they're all good
Good.
sources. Just make sure it's extra virgin olive oil.
Extra virgin.
Once you open the bottle, how long does it last? If you were to buy a large bottle like that.
If you keep it in a cool place, it would keep for 4 to 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah, for a really long time. But just don't put it in a sunny window, or just make sure it's in a cool environment.
And I find with the fact that I use olive oil almost exclusively that it never lasts me 4 to 6 months because I use it with everything that I prepare. I use it for my salads. I use it for my salmon. I use it for, my chicken when I'm preparing it. So the fact that I use it so much, it truly, I run out of it before and it would ever expire.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we put it on the cookie sheet. I put parchment paper on. And make sure they're all separated so they roast nicely. And we're going to put it in the oven.
A lot of people say, oh, I hate broccoli. And, I for a long time felt the same way until I found a different way to make it. And when you add the seasoning, the garlic, the lemon juice, the broccoli just becomes a carrier for all that other good flavor. So it's easy to use it. And then the carrots, what are we going to do with the carrots, Savon?
So we're going to put them on a cookie sheet. Again, I love to use parchment paper because it's a nonstick and it works really well. So I peeled some carrots and I put them on a cookie sheet. And I take some salt and pepper, coat them nicely. Get some salt here. And some olive oil.
Savon, one of the things I'm noticing is this is, you're a chef, and when you are around a chef, you always think, oh my gosh, I could never do what they do. But I'm seeing that these things are really things that I can easily replicate. Yeah. Here.
We have another olive oil question. Someone has heard what sounds like a myth that extra virgin olive oil is only for salad dressings and things that are cold, but not for baking or sauteing. But it looks like you're about to use it in the oven.
Well, I like to use the olive oil because I don't fry anything. So if you use a fryer or you fry something on the stovetop, it will get to this hot temperature. For what we're using in the oven, it's not hot enough to ruin the chemistry of the oil.
So what about for baking?
Baking baked goods?
Mm-hmm. Would you use olive oil or it changes the flavor too much?
It will change the flavor. Mm-hmm. Baking is a little tricky. There is a great orange olive oil cake that I make. Mm-hmm. So it depends what, but you can't do it in cookies.
Yeah, right.
So
right.
It really depends.
Yeah. And actually, a lot of the baked goods have white flour and they have sugar. And those are the things that, we're really not eating on the Mediterranean diet. And we're going to talk about dessert in a second. If you don't mind, we'll just kind of hold off on that for a minute to talk about, that baking and dessert type thing. Because that's an important part of what, our diet is. Having a cookie here and there certainly isn't something we want to give up.
Yeah.
So what did you put on the carrots along with the salt and pepper?
Salt and pepper, olive oil, cumin is wonderful with carrots. Really, really good. Garlic, because you have to eat a lot of garlic. So I just put like this, and then I go with the tongs and roll it. Or you can do it over a plate, and, just like that. Now we're going to roast them in the oven, 400 degrees for about 10 to 15 minutes. And then I'm going to take them out, add some balsamic vinegar on top to kind of caramelize them. But we're going to finish it off like this. But I'm just going to put this in the oven.
Okay, thank you.
Shelly, what about coconut oil?
Yeah, coconut was a good question. I knew that was going to come up, so I did an extra research on it today because I was like, what? I've used it before and I've got to have a good answer for it. So Coconut oil is solid at room temperature, like we talked about. Solid at room temperature generally means a lot of saturated fat. And coconut oil does have a lot of saturated fat, but the type of saturated fat it has is not the kind that is not heart healthy. In fact, it's called medium chain triglycerides, or what's in the coconut oil. And they actually find that the good cholesterol that we have in our body is actually enhanced by coconut oil. So using coconut oil on occasion in our food is actually not a problem for us. And it's probably better for baking. It would definitely be better for baking because, again, you don't have that kind of that taste of that olive oil. Right. So it would be a good replacement in baking. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not a baker, so Savon's going to have to help us with all the baking things. Okay, so the last thing we're going to show you tonight is a dessert. A very simple dessert to make. So Savon's going to get her ingredients here. One of the things I did want to show you all is, does anybody know how many teaspoons of sugar are in a can of Coca-Cola? There are 9 teaspoons of sugar in a can of Coca-Cola. And so I don't know if you can see in my glass, but that is how much sugar 9 teaspoons looks like. So if you had a can of Coke, this is how much sugar you've just put in your body. And we talked about how bad sugar is in our diet because it, again, increases our glucose level fast. It increases our insulin level fast. It causes a quick drop. It causes more hunger. It causes us to overeat. And it causes inflammation in the body, which we know is associated with a lot of the diseases, particularly the ones we treat. So sugar is really unhealthy for us. It is hidden in so many foods that it's amazing. If you go to the grocery store and you're reading your food labels, when you jump into that center section that we're going to try to stay out of, and you read food labels, you're going to be amazed where you find sugar. There is sugar in salad dressing. Why is there sugar in salad dressing? There's sugar in peanut butter. Why is there sugar in peanut butter? There is sugar in salt. Some of the salt products have sugar in it. So there's a lot of hidden sugar in our diet. And the reason for that is because Americans are sugar addicts. And we became sugar addicts because of the corn industry, and there's a whole history of why the sugar became such a prevalent thing in our culture. But we are sugar addicts. And so you do have to be very careful. You have to read your labels, and you have to look for those hidden sources and not purchase things that have them. Okay, so sugar, again, the other thing that is an enemy to our good health is high fructose corn syrup. That's another one. When you see that on the food label, we shouldn't even entertain buying it. It's not healthy for us. Sugar is better than high fructose corn syrup, but neither one are found in any great degree in the Mediterranean diet because of the fact that it's not healthy for our bodies. Yes, for sure. Savon's going to show us a real quick and easy dessert that can satisfy our sweet tooth, but yet meet the standards of the Mediterranean diet.
So you open the date because they do have pits, so you have to be careful. You take the pit out. You take a walnut for crunch and healthy fat. You put it in the date.
You replace the pit.
Yeah. And it is so delicious and so satisfying and way better for you. I mean, dates are really healthy too.
Yeah, they are, aren't they?
Yep.
And again, it satisfies the sweet tooth, but again, the sugar is bound in some of the fiber of the date. And so it allows for our body to have a slow release of that glucose, which is what we're after. So great alternative for a dessert when we have that sweet tooth.
And it's quick, it's easy, it's simple.
We have some people with sweet tooth who have suggestions in the chat.
Great.
Somebody mentioned that she likes 3 dried figs for dessert every day, sometimes with dark chocolate.
Oh, dark chocolate. That's a yes.
That sounds amazing.
Diet, by the way. You don't have to give up dark chocolate.
And someone else is asking, what about maple syrup as a sweetener?
That's a good alternative.
It is an excellent alternative because, again, the release of the glucose is lower in maple syrup. And so that's good. The thing I love to use is something that comes from a plant, and it's called stevia. Some of you may be familiar with it. You can find it where the sugar is in the Harris Teeter and Publix and all those. Stevia is actually fiber from a plant that's ground down. And fiber in our diet gives us 0 calories. So stevia gives us 0 calories, but it's sweet. It's a sweet fiber from this plant. And so it's a great alternative to sugar and sweeteners. And if you Google it, because, Savon and I talked about the fact that we could give you all kind of like measurements and substitutions, but you're not going to come back to our video, nor are you can look for a handout on the website as when you're in the middle of cooking. So Google's great. We can use it. So Google recipes, and you can find ones that have stevia as the replacement for sugar in some of your desserts. So it's a great alternative to that sugar. And again, 0 calories, and it's not a sugar alcohol. It's not an artificial sugar. Most of those have been researched, and yeah, they say they're fine, but to me, the more chemicals I add to my body, the more risk I'm putting myself at. So I try not to put a lot of chemicals in my body. Stevia is not a chemical, it's a plant. And so it's a great alternative for sweetening. Yeah, love it. Love it. Savon's going to get all of her things together. She has them together. We'll show you that in a minute so we can show you the final product. One thing we did want to mention is, we're talking a lot about all of these changes, eat salad, have salmon, cook broccoli. Some of you might be saying, holy heck, how am I going to do this? How am I going to change this Mediterranean lifestyle? Anytime we're trying to change a health habit, we need to do it in steps. So if I said to you, tomorrow you need to just eat a Mediterranean diet, that's the lifestyle you have, and you can't have all these foods, most of us would fail. None of us have that capacity to go cold turkey and change our life on a dime. Some people can, but I'm telling you, it's rare. When I taught in a nutrition class, my students had to do a project every semester where they had to change a health habit. And the way we did it was they said, here's my long-term goal. I'm going to stop drinking 9 teaspoons of Coca-Cola by the end of the semester that I have right now every single day. And so what they started with was a mini goal. In 2 weeks, I'm going to have Coke only 6 days a week. And when they accomplished that goal, they gave themselves a little reward. Maybe they went and got themselves sparkling water because it's kind of fun, something small. And then they had 2 more weeks and they said, I'm now going to have a Coke every 5 days. And then they went down to 3 days. And then eventually they got down to 0 days. So when we want to adopt a new healthy lifestyle, we need to do it incrementally with incremental goals and incremental rewards as we make those goals. So I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. Savon and I were talking, this can be overwhelming. This is what I got to do. How am I ever going to do this? Do it incrementally. On our website, there is a handout and a video on achieving healthy habits and achieving your goals. And so I'd encourage you to look at that because it really lays out how do I create a plan in order to change health habits that I have. So that's such a really important thing. It can be overwhelming to change everything, but start with something and add to it as you go.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. All right. So Savon's going to show us her final products here. And wow, it looks so good.
It's a beautiful balanced sweater.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. A variety of color, having different colors says to me that I'm getting food from different sources and I'm getting different nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
Savon used different seasonings. So again, we're getting different phytochemicals from our seasoning. And we have, look at all that carbohydrate. We were talking about how much of my plate should be carbohydrate, and this can serve more than one person. So it's really, more than for one. But look at the distribution. This is all carbohydrate surrounding here. There's carbohydrate with the lemon, and then my protein is this small amount in the middle. So that just kind of gives you a visual of what it looks like on the carbohydrate salad. So when you add that all together, look at how much healthy carbohydrate we have. Again, good carbohydrates, and then a healthy protein with that healthy fat of olive oil included on it.
A big thank you to Shelly, Savon, and Melanie for pulling this together. It was great. It was really so informative. I wrote some notes, and for those of you who know me, I'm not a big cook, but I did take in a couple of keynotes. It was really, really informative. And so thank you all. We are so fortunate to be able to do these programs in large part due to our sponsorship from Southminster. They are a great partner of ours. In addition to having just an absolutely state-of-the-art community right here in Charlotte, they also have a home care company called Embrace Home Care that provides incredible support to both the residents and also the larger Charlotte community. So we have worked with them for many, many years, and they have kindly offered to sponsor these programs. So we're very, very grateful for their continued support.